Good afternoon. It's Sunday, March 13th. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Hamas is responsible for preventing rocket attacks on southern Israel. That's the word from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was speaking at the start of today's weekly cabinet meeting. Netanyahu reiterated that Israel will not accept any rockets fired from Gaza into Israeli territory, adding that Jerusalem holds Hamas accountable for all attacks against the Jewish state. Netanyahu said he is still waiting for the Attorney General Avichai Mandelblik's decision concerning the deportation of terrorist families from the West Bank to Gaza. The Prime Minister also discussed Israel's ongoing battle against the Palestinian incitement, which includes shutting down Palestinian media, stressing that it is not about freedom of the press, but a matter of stopping all incitement against the Jewish state. Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon warned that Israel will hit Hamas harder than ever before if it continues to fire rockets at southern Israel. The defense minister made the statement in Tel Aviv Saturday night in response to the firing of 4 rockets in the south on Friday evening. Sirens sounded in Sderot and the Shar HaNegev region. No one was injured and no damage was reported. Shortly afterwards, the Air Force targeted 4 Hamas training camps in Gaza. The Palestinians reported that 2 siblings, aged 10 and 6, were killed, apparently from debris that hit their homes located near the Hamas training camp in Bet Lahia. Responding to the Israeli airstrikes, Hamas officials in Gaza later warned Israel that its patience is wearing thin. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called on world powers to take immediate action against Iran following last week's missile tests. A statement issued by the Prime Minister's office last night instructed the Foreign Ministry to appeal to the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council and Germany to punish the Islamic Republic for what he called repeated and gross violations. The UN member states, known as P5+1 countries, brokered a nuclear deal with Iran that saw the lifting of sanctions. Iran said the missiles are capable of reaching Israel, and on the missiles themselves, slogans were written in Hebrew reading, "Israel must be wiped off the face of the earth." The upsurge in Palestinian violence continued over the weekend. 2 soldiers were lightly wounded when shots were fired at them from a passing car near a checkpoint in the Beit Horon area on Road 443 Friday evening. The soldiers were taken to Shaarei Tzedek Hospital in Jerusalem for treatment. The attackers fled the scene. Last night, the army imposed a closure on the West Bank town of Beit Ur el Tachta, where they believe the terrorist who perpetrated the shooting attack is hiding. Residents of the town are permitted to enter and exit for humanitarian purposes only. Earlier in the day, a 29-year-old yeshiva student was stabbed while walking in Jerusalem's Old City near Dung Gate. The attacker fled the scene but was captured by security forces a short time later, hiding in a nearby alleyway. In the West Bank, an explosive device was detonated near the vehicle of a Jewish motorist driving near Otniel in the southern Hebron Hills. She was unharmed by the blast. Prime Minister Netanyahu thanked French President François Hollande for halting the broadcast of the Hamas-run Al-Aqsa television, which used the services of the French satellite communications provider EU Telset. Israel's embassy in Paris reported that the station was shut down Saturday morning after it intentionally disturbed local Israeli satellite programming. All those watching Channel 2 Friday night via satellite and not through a cable provider was suddenly exposed to a series of Palestinian incitement clips. Despite removal of the Al-Aqsa station, Hamas found a quick solution and began using their services of the Egyptian satellite Nilesat, and is now continuing its broadcast as usual. In the ongoing crackdown on Palestinian incitement, IDF forces raided the television station Palestine El-Yum before dawn on Friday and arrested the station's director. The Palestinian television station, however, is continuing to broadcast from its offices in Gaza. Returning now to the tensions in the south of the country and following the firing of 4 rockets into Israel from Gaza over the weekend. Joining us now from our Tel Aviv studio is journalist Enrique Zimmerman, who recently returned from inside the Gaza Strip, where he documented the situation there. Enrique, how are you?
Thank you, Ariel.
Enrique, you were inside the Gaza Strip, and you spoke with senior Hamas members and local Palestinian residents living under Hamas rule. The terrorist group says it's not interested in further escalations with Israel at this time. Is this what you saw? Is that accurate?
Well, what we saw, I wasn't personally there, Ariel. It's important to know. Israelis can't go inside the Gaza Strip, but I had people there. I had a crew there. And I had a chance to speak with some people there far from Israel. And I had contact with some of them. You know, the situation there is quite extreme in Gaza at this stage. Really, the humanitarian problem is huge, as you know. You know that the UN published a report called 2020 saying that in 4 years it will be really impossible to live in Gaza. And they mean in the environment point of view, they speak about water, for instance. But at the same time, we see that Hamas, because of this very difficult situation, is losing popularity in Gaza. We spoke with some analysts that told us that they feel that Hamas is losing popularity, but it didn't disintegrate as a force, as a political force. They still are the rulers of Gaza. In a way, they speak about the three-state solution, not the two-state solution, because there are really two Palestines. And what we saw in this report also is that Hamas is using the cement arriving to Gaza to rebuild thousands of destroyed buildings for tunnels. And they are using them, and they are explaining, some Hamas leaders, officials, they are saying these are shelters for the population in general, which is quite almost like a joke in a way. We know that they are continuing and building all kinds of tunnels, and the situation is quite extreme at this stage.
Enrique, you say that the Hamas is losing popularity. Do you see a situation that the Palestinian leadership would be overthrown by the people there, maybe taking back Fatah?
Well, we shouldn't forget that really it's a kind of a regime where the people are afraid to say what they think. They are afraid to say how they feel in a way, because it's a dictatorship really, and that could cost them a lot. So I believe people, in a way, they are afraid, but they feel that they are in the middle of two fires, Israel and Egypt, because also President Sisi from Egypt closed the Rafah border, and the situation for them is quite difficult. We know they have 60% of disemployment in Gaza, mainly of youngsters, 50% average in general, lots of refugees, as we know, and Hamas is not doing what they can to improve the situation of the citizens. Hamas is investing in the way to really mobilize the population around I would say, the resistance and the fight, the armed fight against Israel. So they are losing popularity, but they are still ruling Gaza, and I don't think we can know what could we expect. I think that for Israel, it's a danger, this humanitarian situation. I believe that Israel, some initiatives in Israel, like in a way easing the siege around Gaza, like trying to give them a certain autonomy with energy, for instance, electricity. They only have electricity some hours a day, or water, that could maybe help the people in Gaza, and to try to separate between the population, the civil population, and Hamas.
You mentioned Egypt. Did you get a sense that there is also anger towards the Egyptian rule?
Very much. I think there is a lot of anger towards President Sisi. I think they feel abandoned after Morsi, the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, that was a kind of an ally for them and a protector. Now they feel that Sisi thinks that they are part of the Muslim Brotherhood, so he treats them like that, and he destroys the tunnels between the Rafah part of Egyptian part and the Palestinian part, and he avoids all kind of smuggling. They told it openly in the report. They avoid this kind of smuggling. They say they only bring food and medicines, but the fact is they are very, very cross with President Sisi, who really tries. I know that President Sisi told some foreign leaders that he knows how to deal with Hamas better even than Israel.
You know, you mentioned some of the things that should be done. From talking to the people that are in Gaza, do you think that more can be done besides a military solution at this stage to improve the life of people in Gaza?
Well, I think that the military solution is not the only one possible here. I think there would be a combination between a military solution and a diplomatic solution. I think that Israel, after the last war, lost a certain opportunity of having more influence for the Palestinian Authority, for President Abbas, for instance, in Rafah border, or trying to really have something in a way, the moment they get the money coming from the international community. You remember that more than $5 billion were promised to Gaza. Most of the money didn't arrive, didn't reach their goal, and Hamas is using whatever they can to continue the resistance, continue the building a new industry of rockets and preparing really the next war. I think there is a possibility of avoiding the next war, but it should be done, something should be done as soon as possible, maybe related with the Turkish option. I know that President Erdogan in Turkey, he said there is an agreement prepared already, almost done and finished with Israel about Gaza. We don't know the details, but maybe one of the solutions will be that one, exactly, the Turkish option.
Enrique Zimmerman, thanks for sharing your insight with your knowledge of what's going on in the Gaza Strip. Thanks for joining IBA News.
Thank you, Ariel.
Weighing in on the current wave of violent attacks, Israel's chief Sephardic rabbi, Yitzhak Yosef, said if a terrorist armed with a knife knows he will be killed, that this will deter others. Speaking last night at his Jerusalem home during his weekly Torah class, the chief rabbi said it would be a mitzvah to kill any terrorist who comes after someone while brandishing a knife. The rabbi noted that once a terrorist is disarmed or neutralized, he shouldn't be killed on the spot, but rather be imprisoned for life. He cautioned that when facing an armed assailant, people shouldn't worry about the consequences and the possibility of being held on trial. A memorial service was held at Ben Gurion Airport for the American tourist Taylor Force, who was killed in a terrorist attack in Jaffa last Tuesday. Deputy U.S. Ambassador William Grant and former Knesset member Dov Lipman, as well as U.S. Army officers and some of Taylor's friends, attended Friday's ceremony. Force, a 29-year-old MBA student at the Vanderbilt University and former U.S. Army officer, was fatally stabbed Tuesday night as he walked with friends in Jaffa Port.
Good morning, everyone. It's not easy to be Shalom. Taylor, go in peace. The people of Israel are with you, are with your family.
As Taylor Force begins his journey home. Innocent of any wrongdoing.
Send bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watch.
The Arab League has officially designated Hezbollah a terrorist organization, following in the footsteps of the Saudi-led Gulf Cooperation Council, who made a similar decision earlier this week. Friday's decision by the 21-member state league was opposed by Lebanon and Iraq, who voted against the classification. The decision to label the Lebanese Shiite group is expected to intensify pressure on Hezbollah. Tensions between Sunni and Shiite Muslim powers in the region is on the rise, with the Arab League becoming a forum for predominantly Sunni countries to air grievances with the regional Shiite power Iran. U.S. Republican presidential candidate Marco Rubio said he doesn't believe conditions currently exist for a two-state solution in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Rubio made the statements at a press conference in Florida on Friday.
Because two-state solutions involves the idea that there are two parties that are willing to agree to that, and there are not. I think Israel is willing to be incredibly accommodating, has proven their willingness to do so, have taken some extraordinary measures, including confronting people who have built homes and neighborhoods in order to move forward on some of these things. The Palestinian Authority has never shown any willingness. In fact, they've turned down some very generous offers in the past, flat out ignored them in others. And I just don't see right now the conditions for that, especially once they joined up with Hamas and an organization whose specific intent and purpose is the destruction of the Jewish state. The conditions just don't exist. And forcing Israel to a negotiating table that ultimately will lead to nothing but legitimizing an organization like the Palestinian Authority, who celebrates as martyrs and heroes people who are killing innocent people, including this young American who died in an attack this week, I think is actually counterproductive and undermines Israel's security.
A number of female lawmakers are up in arms over reports that imprisoned former President Moshe Katsav may be released early or receive a presidential pardon. In 2011, Katsav was sentenced to a 7-year jail term for rape and other sexual offense charges. Local media reports over the weekend suggested that Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked and President Reuven Rivlin would support pardoning the former president if he is not granted an early parole. Both Rivlin and Shaked denied the reports, and Shaked said she had not received any such request. Zionist Union Knesset member Shelley Yachimovich said on her Facebook page that Katsav's release would send a terrible message to victims of sexual attacks. 3 female Knesset members from Meretz echoed similar sentiments. Katsav is scheduled to appear before the Prison Service Parole Board on March 27th to see if they agree to shorten his prison term. We're taking a sharp turn and in tradition with our Sunday lineup. As we kick off the start of a new week, here are 5 good stories that may put a smile on your face and may make you feel a little bit proud. Now it's official. The oldest man in the world is Israeli Holocaust survivor Yisrael Kristal, a resident of Haifa. The 112-year-old man who survived Auschwitz was handed a certificate by Guinness World Records on Friday. U.S. aerospace and data protection giant Lockheed Martin officially released a cybersecurity product that is based on homegrown Israeli startup Cyber Reason. Israel and Japan signed a memorandum of understanding to increase trade and economic ties. A delegation of 30 top Japanese businessmen and government officials was in the country last week to lay the groundwork for the deal. 1 out of every 4 international medical breakthroughs and innovations has an Israeli connection. This according to the chairperson of the upcoming Israeli Biomedical Conference set to take place in May. That's a courtesy of the Times of Israel. And in the more local beat, a new center for Middle Eastern music was launched in the city of Lod in the presence of Culture Minister Miri Regev. Metrogue hopes to bring Jewish and Arab aspiring musicians together to perform and develop music styles of diverse ethnic backgrounds. Taking a look at the local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekels remains the same, while the share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange started off the week in the plus column. Here's a look at the mid-afternoon numbers. Well, the IBA weather team says winter is returning. Tomorrow's forecast calls for cloudy skies with local rain and thunder showers. Temperatures are expected to drop. Hazy skies and wind gusts can also be expected, as well as flooding in the south and the east. Here are the expected highs and lows at home and abroad for the next 24 hours. That brings us to the end of this broadcast of IBA News. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan. I'll be back here tomorrow. Please join us. Until then, have a good evening and shalom from Jerusalem. And we leave you with footage of folks enjoying the warm weekend weather picnicking at the Beit Zayit Reservoir near Jerusalem.